Ending global welfare. That's the focus of tonight's Angle. All right, the globalists gathered in Paris, and they got a friendly but firm earful today. Vice President J.D. Vance had a message to world leaders about America's plans regarding the future of AI. The simple message: if you want our business, you're going to have to treat us right. We'll work with you, but don't think of taking advantage of us or bullying American corporations.
The Trump administration is troubled by reports that some foreign governments are considering tightening the screws on U.S. tech companies with international footprints. Now, America cannot and will not accept that, and we think it's a terrible mistake, not just for the United States of America, but for your own countries.
I love when they pan to the faces, the grim faces. We used to be able to take advantage of Joe Biden, but not you. Well, what specifically was Vance referring to there?
Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation. And of course, we want to ensure the internet is a safe place. But it is one thing to prevent a predator from preying on a child on the internet, and it is something quite different to prevent a grown man or woman from accessing an opinion that the government thinks is misinformation.
It's about time that a U.S. official called out Europe's attack on free speech right to their faces. Look, the Europeans aren't even trying to pretend at this point. Officials there are openly calling for censorship of American social media companies, including X and Meta. And back in August, remember when Musk was about to interview then-candidate Donald Trump on X? An EU commissioner warned about a risk of amplification of potentially harmful content. At the time, I was thinking, harmful to whom? Well, to the global bureaucrats, of course. So why should American taxpayers continue to subsidize this to the tune of tens of billions of dollars in defense costs when countries that don't protect basic freedoms in their own countries continue on? Well, our new Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, also overseas, had another blunt message for our allies. Time to ramp up your military spending and do more to defend yourselves.
The European continent deserves to be free from any aggression, but it ought be those in the neighborhood investing the most in that collective, individual and collective defense. As the president talks a lot about, common sense is you defend your neighborhood and the Americans will come alongside you in helping in that defense. Most NATO countries are already close to 2%. We believe that needs to be higher.
Yeah, in other words, the free ride is over, kids. It's been 80 years since World War II ended, and America is up to her ears in debt. Friends don't let friends drive drunk, and friends don't let friends mooch off of them forever. But to the old foreign policy establishment, asking Europe to do more, it's always considered an insult and even dangerous because it plays into Putin's hands, don't you know? Well, that's absurd. It's out of step with what most Americans want at this point. But then again, the old guard is so used to foreign policy failure and running roughshod over what the American people actually want that they really can't relate to this innovative approach. Thus, when Trump floats the idea of taking back the Panama Canal or even figuring out a way to buy Greenland or taking over Gaza, heads explode.
This is like a bully in the schoolyard looking around for someone small to push around. You know, so far we've had Greenland and Denmark, we've had Canada and Mexico. This is autocratic behavior.
Trump is threatening to further destabilize the region. It's just a disaster. It's kind of a disgrace. He's humiliating our allies.
It's a disgrace. But is a U.S.-led rebuild of Gaza any crazier than sticking with the status quo? Do they have any ideas for how to deal with that? And how is continuing a massive trade deficit with Canada fair, given how much security we provide them? And how is it not insane to give China a foothold in a major shipping lane that we paid for? So if there's one unifying theme behind Trump's approach to other countries, it's this: you're not going to rip us off any longer, and you won't get something for nothing.
We were paying almost all of NATO. It was unfair. We take care of the military, and then they take advantage of us on trade. You know, they're very tough. I'll tell you what, the EU on trade is horrible. Canada is just about the lowest payer in the whole thing, which is very unfair. You know why they're low payer? because they think the United States is going to take care of them. You think that's fair? It's not fair.
And Ukraine also will need to pay up for the hundreds of billions we spent there. Trump Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is headed to Ukraine for a frank discussion.
They have tremendously valuable land in terms of rare earth, in terms of oil and gas, in terms of other things. I want to have our money secured because we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars. I told them that I want the equivalent, like $500 billion worth of rare earth, and they've essentially agreed to do that.
So expect a lot of wailing from the free riders and the defenders of the free riders as President Trump puts America first, and as he methodically restores balance to our relationships around the world with pragmatism. But in the end, Europe, Mexico, South America, Australia, they're going to have to decide whether they wish to partner with the United States or be run over by China. Trump's betting they're going to choose to stick with us. And of course, he's right. And that's the angle.